Welcome to Backyards and Bevvies. Grab your favorite bevy, pull up a chair, and enjoy the ride. Hey, B&B fam. This podcast is sponsored to you by BetterHelp, H-E-L-P. Is there something getting in the way of your happiness? I know when I traveled the world, I had many days where BetterHelp's worldwide service of licensed professional therapists could have helped me speak to someone no matter where I was in the world about whatever was happening with my life, and with zero judgment. With their ability to match me with a therapist that best fits me, I know my mental health would have been way better back then. Believe me, I needed it. But I'm here to share a way for you to take back control of your mental health by telling you about BetterHelp's awesome services they have for you to talk with a pro about your life through their app or just online. Whether it is a video session or some simple messaging, their team is here to help. I went to check out the app for myself just to see how easy it was to use, and after a series of questions, I was told I would be able to start matching with a therapist in under 48 hours. And what is super rad is that it's affordable and they even offer financial aid too. So come join the 2 million users that have already been helped and gain back control of your mental health by visiting betterhelp.com/backyards for 10% off your first month. Remember, BetterHelp is therapy done securely online. Don't forget to use the special code BACKYARDS and let BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, help you to start living a happier life today. Hello, Backyards and Bevvies.
Hi.
Hi. It is, I think the temperature is the surface of the sun out there today.
Hell's front porch is what our favorite meme would say.
And the humidity is somewhere in the 1,000%.
Yes, absolutely.
It went from
It was beautiful
a nice
yesterday.
80, I think mid 80s yesterday.
Yeah.
A little rainy.
It was nice though.
But it was nice.
And then all the rain made it just stifling outside.
Yeah, it's pretty bad out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided to do this inside today.
Yeah, besides all the mosquitoes, so.
Yeah.
Inside it is. Welcome to Insides and Bevvies.
Insides and Bevvies.
Sounds a little weird.
It does. Inside out. But this we have the desk flipped today. I feel like a news anchor with you today.
I know.
It's kind of weird.
I kind of like it though. I do feel like Ron Burgundy a little bit right now.
But I've never actually liked ever
And you're
sitting on the same
Veronica
side. Like
Cornerstone.
if we went on a date, I wouldn't sit on the same side of the booth with you.
That's
So like
true.
this feels kind of like that.
It was a little weird.
It's like a Seinfeld episode. I feel like we could make a Seinfeld episode about this. Like I didn't really feel comfortable in that last podcast.
It's fine.
No, I know it's fine, but I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
But,
yes.
But what a great week. Upcoming week, I will be announcing the coolest thing next to marrying you and having 2 kids. I signed a publishing deal for my book.
You did. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Everybody can hold the applause till later.
Yay.
We need a clap track, like a laugh track.
Yeah, we do.
Or a clap track, not a laugh.
Yeah, not a laugh
People are laughing. Sucker.
A clap track.
What a sucker.
No.
But it was a really cool deal. And the lady that I signed it with, Julie Brand, owns an amazing independent publishing company.
And it's called?
W Brand Publishing.
That's right.
It's out of Nashville, and we've been talking to her for over a year now.
Mm-hmm. A year and a half almost.
I think the first time you told her she was in, it just was a matter of...
She was interested from our first meeting, yeah.
She's definitely been one of the biggest supporters of this entire adventure. And I think the coolest part is that she's so open to us doing it differently.
Yeah,
which is so cool. I think that is the most amazing thing, and is that she is not only helping us and mentoring us and even getting guidance from her mentors and all these things, but ultimately she's really allowing us to do this thing so wickedly cool. And you know, in the future, the Kickstarter will be launching at the end of this month. We're doing a book tour in November. I mean, there's so much that we can talk about on another episode, but it will be cool because this episode will come out Wednesday, and I think that day we're taking our official photos for the press releases. And, it's crazy to think for 3 years now we've just been doing this process, which we don't see the end, right? Because who knows what the end actually is, if there even is an end when you do something like this, because potentially this book could last forever, right? Like that, there is no end, right? It's limitless at some point. But it is crazy because we're just on this like journey of waking up. It was writing forever, then it was editing forever, and now we're like at like a 50%, somewhere in the middle, where now all of a sudden it's the marketing and the designs and the how do we go about being different with me, who I don't have a name,
trying to get the rest of our team put together.
And it is cool because she is 100% on board when we say something like, we think we should do a book tour through Texas, and she's like, awesome,
let's do it,
and then I'll help you with finding things and doing things along the way, and it's really cool because I have never done this before. And this is all us. We get to imagine and envision and then build and then fail at some point, and then all right, restructure, redo. How do we do it better? So it's been really cool, and I've had some really cool meetings over the last few weeks with people about how to attack this in the smartest way possible, to give the audience the best product possible, to give them exactly what. And I say this a lot, but Taylor Swift is a great representation of someone who is a entertainer who engages with her fans, whether you like her or not, for her music or for whatever it is that you don't or do not like about her. She does do one thing really well, and that's engage with fans. So I've been looking at her as like, okay, how do I go about this?
How do I do it the way Taylor does it?
And even like Arnold Palmer has a signature that is a beautiful signature that allows him time with his fans. And so even there, I've like redone my signature, so that way it's not just a scribbly line and see you later, bye. But the other cool part is, Julie now that I'm a part of her team, she's engaging with me as I'm an author now. It's not like I'm not just a potential client.
Oh, you're not just a writer anymore either, because once you're published, that's when you actually become an author.
Exactly.
You're not published yet, I guess technically, but you've signed a publishing deal, so
it's coming out.
We're going to go with it.
Well, and the coolest part about our deal, too, is that, the book was already done in a way. Like, and I say done, it was mostly I didn't have to worry about producing something for her because it was already there. I just had to worry about getting the story correct, the way that we both. She obviously has done a lot of books, and some of them won awards at some really big awards in the independent book world. So
she had like a number 1 on Amazon the other day. Didn't she?
So she's doing. So her stuff is definitely like, all right, I'm gonna listen to you, because
she's definitely got an eye for talented authors
for sure, and she has an eye for just, I think, where the industry is going too, which is even in my eyes like probably the best part, because if she wanted to, obviously she could just copy the big fives and do exactly what they do, but then
what's the point?
So but one of the things she sent me the other day was this email about like what books impacted our lives the most. And
why was she sending you that?
I forget it's like national on the 8th too. I think the same day, or the 9th. It is 8/9 is National Book Lovers Day, so Wednesday. So the day that
the day you're taking your photo,
take our photos, and the day this comes out, and all the things.
Cool.
So National Book Lovers Day, and so which she asked us to do as part of her author team is send a photo of the books the book that has impacted our life the most. And it was really hard for me to choose one, so I chose two. So I'm going to break the rule. I'm already a rule breaker in the book world. I think I'm already pushing limits that people are like, oh no, here comes another one.
Here we go.
But I chose two because, well, for a long time, I think when I left high school and I didn't have to read anymore, I literally stopped reading. Like, I was over it. Even though in my mind, I still always knew I wanted to write something. There was no appeal. There was so much more appeal in going fast on a dirt bike than there was.
Right.
freaking,
Well, and I
writing
mean,
a book. And now looking at it, I'm like, man, I wish I would. Well, I'm glad I didn't do it back then because
right.
the story would not be where it is today.
No.
But yeah, everything happens clearly for the reason for us being here, you listening to this show, us being married, going through this, selling our house, doing all the things.
All the things.
I mean, we are literally
crazy.
stacked.
So stacked.
So more will be given, and
Yeah.
to those who have less, more will be taken. I mean, I feel like I'm just, but I love it though. I really love
incredible.
the most responsibilities I've ever had in my life. But yeah, I think when I left high school, I mean, probably even in high school, if I didn't have to read, I was not going to, and so writing and reading it have been something such a blessing back in my life that I love it. And one book I read amazingly right before I started touring, and this guy, like, I talk about him all the time. We've had whole shows about him just because he's had such an impact on my life, and I think the impact he's had is his view on how beautiful the world has always been. And he came from such a, working in a dark arena is very similar to working in a dark kitchen.
Yes,
so
very true.
Like you
The
could have the most
personalities are very similar.
you could have the most beautiful day ever, but you still have to walk through that door into four walls, and then you're stuck there.
Right.
And you can't leave until the dinner rush is over.
Right.
And the dinner rush is the show, right?
Right.
So Anthony Bourdain is, I mean, I wouldn't say he's a hero, but he's definitely a literary hero in my eyes, because the way that he writes is so vivid and it's so descriptive, and he truly allows you to paint see his picture, because his is very specific, right? Like he's writing an autobiography about his life, and so he needs to tell you how his life was. I'm writing a fiction book where I do tell you, but I allow some of your brain to be creative, right? So there is a little bit of
leave it up to the reader's imagination in certain areas, which I really like. We were talking to my dad about it last night, that it really allows you as the reader to dive deeper into the story, because you can imagine it in your own totally unique way. It's like you're giving people the guidelines, but not necessarily every detailed little point. Yeah,
and we were talking about a chair that's in one of the scenes of my book, and I don't go into depth about how the chair looks, but I call it an old leather chair. So
you can just imagine an old leather chair that you've seen or had or whatever, but it doesn't have to be black or brown or maroon.
It's your leather chair. It could be tall, skinny. It could be anything that you want. And so, but Anthony, though, he has to use such vivid and descriptive words to paint his picture, because he's trying to get you to see exactly what he's seeing.
Correct.
But
well, his also wasn't fiction.
And that's the other side, is that he's not trying to make you imagine it. He's trying to really get you to understand.
Yeah.
And but to that point, it's like he was the most impressive person doing that, because I was like, well, hold on, I'm a cook working at Hooters, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm not that smart. How is this cook writing such beautiful words and putting them onto paper and then putting them onto a TV screen? Because I first started watching him on TV, and then I got interested. So, but it was just so cool to me. And so Kitchen Confidential, as I brought, and later on in life, he actually signed it for me.
It's so cool.
Right? So if you've never read Kitchen...
I need to read the rest of it. I got like halfway through.
Yeah,
I need to read the rest.
Factory.
I love that you still have the Post-it note that you wrote your nickname on, so that he would know who to address it to.
Well,
we do that in the music industry all the time.
That was the easiest, because then, I mean, like I said, it was so quick. I had a chance to say thank you and hi, but I would have, before he passed, I would have, paid anything to get a chance to, like, just pick his brain, like, how'd you do? And I think the coolest part is how he did it is exactly like I did. He just sat down at a typewriter one day and just started typing.
Yeah.
And
just started to put it down on paper. So cool.
Yeah. It's pretty rad. It's so rad that I get to be at least in the same, like, arena. Like, I'm not on the same playing floor yet. Like, I mean, the guy wrote many, many books and, sold millions of copies. But I have at least solidified, or by the end of this year, I would have at least solidified the fact that
you are going to be a published author, just like he was a published author. Pretty incredible.
It's pretty rad.
It really
like, kind of makes me a little teary-eyed.
Well, it's really amazing to have someone that you look up to as inspiration in your life. And then you get to actually fulfill that inspiration in your own way, walking a similar path, obviously in a different genre of writing, but
it's still writing.
You're still writing.
Still writing.
Yeah.
That's the coolest.
You would have loved to hear that, I think. Especially to hear that, like, he was one of the major reasons that you even wanted to be a writer.
Yeah. I think that is those, it's like the Kobe Michael moment in life, Again, it's weird to even say those names and think of me and Anthony in that light, but it's true. Like, there's always a newbie out there looking to take, the championship from the king. And I'm not, and again, the two totally different genres, so I would never be able to take his his crown. But the idea of stepping into that same box with all those other writers that have written something in this world in lifetime is super cool. Like, it's
amazing
to know that people will be able to go and purchase it and read it and listen to it.
Yeah, you're gonna have an audiobook, which will be really cool.
That was like, I got an audition back yesterday or a couple of days now, but we've been listening to it, and we've only gotten one,
just a brief snippet,
and it was so crazy hearing the words that I put on paper now get read
by a professional
actor. And it sounds so good.
It's awesome.
It was, because through my head, like, I can hear it all day long, and even then sometimes I'm like, does that make sense? Like, is the cadence and is the flow correct? Is the rhythm right? Are all the things adding up that I should be doing? Because I'm still learning every day. Like, there's that YouTube video I watch with the two South Park creators.
Yeah,
I watch it all the time, usually right before I start to write, because once I found it, it was such an intelligent way of talking about keeping the beat and keeping your audience actually engaged, as opposed to just wondering what's next.
Right.
Because I think there's like really something that's what, like, also Tony did. He didn't just have you like sit there and watch a show and be like, oh, okay, well, he's clearly at a restaurant and something's going to happen.
He's trying some things that look delicious.
He left you wanting more because of his ability to keep that beat and to keep you wanting that rhythm to stay in that pocket. So like the South Park writers, they were just talking about, to have a story have the next thing just be like, and then this happened, is a very lazy way to think of writing something, because of course something's going to happen, but why?
Cause and effect.
Therefore this happened. They talk about using but and therefore as being those beat plate, those holders in your book, and it's really true. And so I don't know, it's writing is really, I wish I could tell young Phil, like, just pay attention to spelling. Just a little bit more in life. You don't have to write, you don't have to read anymore, but just, pay attention to spelling, because that might come back.
Some grammar.
Might help you a little bit later in life.
Yeah, but that's what you have editors and me for, so.
That is very true, and I'm sure every author or every person who's ever put something on paper understands that. Well,
you're only going to get better also. I mean, since the first draft that you did, that we have in all those binders still, that I went through with a red pen, and I basically redlined every sentence of 500 pages. Now it's totally different. You rewrote the very last chapter of the book the other day.
Well, we didn't, not the last, well, we just shifted, and then that ended up being the end. So I had to edit that.
But the point is that I read through it, and I had barely any changes at all.
Yeah.
Totally different from 3 years ago when you first started.
It feels good to know that I'm growing in something that I love, the same way that I grew in something that I used to love. And I think that alone, and also being humble enough to know that I'll always need an editor. There's no way that I'll be able to write a book without an editor.
Everybody needs an editor.
Yeah, like even the best.
Editor, proofreader, it doesn't matter who you are.
Master,
King,
everything. Like and I think that to me is what will hopefully help me grow the most in this industry, is knowing that I've never done any of this before. So all of this is new, though I have dreams of how I want it to go and how I want, like, the releases to go and things like that, I still have to at one point go, okay, I have never done this, so you show. Like, that's why we have Julie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why she's, good at what she does. And so, but yeah, the Kitchen Confidentials, it really took me, I think, as a young adult in my 20s to see that there's a possibility for someone to get out of a situation and take their situation though and grow from it, right? Like, he clearly went on to do TV and went on to be on our favorite show, Top Chef.
Love it so much.
And magazines and other TV shows, and he took something that a lot of people probably look at as like another kitchen, or I'm working at another dead end job, but it's like he found the fun in there, and like he found the thing that made that job sing, and then took it to the biggest.
Our cats just laid on a baby toy and made it go off.
Of course they did.
Of course.
They could lay anywhere in this house, and they found the one thing that makes noise.
The one thing that makes noise.
Yeah, so, okay. That was my one book. I'm going to start, and then it's your turn.
Okay.
Sorry, I talked for a long time.
You're good. We know you.
I always talk. Yeah. I'm a talker.
We're used to it by now.
I know. Thanks for listening.
So the book that I was going to talk about is very different from your book choice. And it's actually the first book that I can ever remember reading myself that was like not a kid's book, like not something that's like easy to read. And I still have it somewhere downstairs. I'm sure I will find it when we move. But it's this book that's called The World's Best Fairy Tales. And it's beautiful. And I don't think it's even in print anymore. Like when I Googled it earlier to see if I was remembering the name correctly, everything that was coming up was like, you have to find it at like a thrift store or an old bookstore or something like that.
Like leather bound.
It's not leather. It's
but nicely
it's a hardcover book. And I don't even think it ever had a sleeve. I don't remember it ever having a sleeve over it. But the actual hardcover of the book is this like deep red with this like gold leaf pattern all over it. It's like very classic looking. And it's old. My grandmother, my grandma, gave it to my mom, I think for Christmas one year. And then my mom passed it down to me. And so, I'll pass it down to our littles. But it's really cool. It's a really thick book. It's got to be 500, 800 something pages.
Whoa,
who knows
how
many.
Amazing.
It's huge. And it is a collection of like all of the fairy tales that you can imagine. And not just the ones that you hear about like Disney style fairy tales, but like the old ones that inspired those types of
like clearly
of
there's like Hansel and Gretel in there.
That's in there,
the boy
like
who cried
Arabian
wolf.
Nights, which like inspired Aladdin, but like the original Arabian Nights. So it's all the like original like Grimm's and stuff fairy tales are all in this one book.
Very cool.
And there's really cool illustrations, but they're not like big color illustrations. They're more like sketches almost, and there's only like one per story or something like that. So really, really cool book, and I used to love to read it.
Is it in color? Or the sketches? So it's all black
and white.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I would read it to myself like at night. I remember I would be like under my covers with a flashlight, and my mom would be like, "Go to bed." Okay, turn the flashlight off. She'd close the door. I'd wait a couple minutes, turn the flashlight back on, and start to read again. But it really kind of spurred me into becoming an avid reader. I used to read all the time. If I wasn't doing something school or friends related, I was reading and listening to music at the same time. I would always fall asleep with headphones on and like a book right next to me. So that book, I would say, really shaped my life because it spurred my imagination. It made me really love reading, and then I just continued to devour books while I was growing up.
What story was your favorite? Or do you? I'm assuming a couple probably. But
there were quite a few that I really liked. I actually really liked the Arabian Nights one because it was like action packed and not something that you would expect. these fairy tales, like, I don't know that fairy tales are actually meant for children most of the time, because a lot of them have a lot of like really dark undertones. I mean, like, there are some stories in some fairy tales in there where like women are getting kidnapped and men are like having their way with them. They don't like describe that, but it's like, this was the way of the world back when this happened type of situation. Or like, you know, crazy sword fights and like, oh, he killed this guy. And it's like, wow, I'm like 9 or something like that, like reading this book. But, you know, fairy tales are obviously, there's always some basis in truth with fiction or fairy tales or anything like that. So I just always, that book I have moved with me everywhere. It is like the one book I've always refused to get rid of, especially because it's also a family heirloom, but it's just a very special book to me.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great book if you can never find it. The World's Best Fairy Tales.
We'll have to...
If I can't find the book downstairs, I mean, we have to go through all kinds of stuff, but I can give you a picture to give to Julie or something.
Yeah, it's
a really cool book.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, I think fairy tales, I remember those as a kid. I wasn't super into them, but I know I had a couple that were like favorites. Like the Boy That Cried Wolf, I think might have been one of my top favorites. And like Jack and the Beanstalk. I mean, they're good tales though that are adventurous. You know, I think that they usually have an ending that teaches you a lesson too.
Yes,
you know,
there
like, there's
usually is a
like,
lesson. Yeah.
But I think that even though that there was probably more a few in there that are adult-ish, I mean, the world is
it's a vicious place out there.
I mean,
and it definitely took me until I was older, much, much older, rereading the story to be like,
oh, whoa.
What?
But I think that even happens
I do not remember this being in this story.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's like, well, obviously because I didn't understand what these certain words or phrases or whatever were trying to infer.
Like Pinocchio is a terrifying movie if you think about what is actually happening. You know, it's not it's a kid's movie, but there's kidnapping there and there's drinking, lying, and I mean, like
getting eaten by a whale, very Jonah in the Bible.
It's a super religious tale in many ways, but like it's a dark kid's tale though. But I think that it's one of those things that's telling you to watch out. Like ultimately, it's telling you like just keep an eye out on yourself. You know, like watch out for your friends. And
be a good human.
Don't lie.
And don't lie. Because guess what? It comes back every time. You will always get caught.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you, like, since you had that like late night and you'd read that, and obviously I'm sure your mom would read it to you or your dad would read it to you at times.
My grandma would read it to me.
Your grandma would read it to you. I think, to me, what's cool about that is that you took the time to then go and read more.
Yeah.
See, like looking at you,
it was never enough. Like one story, I was like, well, no, I want to keep reading. Like now I'm like,
well, I feel
my
like that's
brain and imagination are like super intrigued, and now I'm just going to read until literally I fall asleep with it.
And I think that's how our little dude is.
Yeah.
He takes after you in that sense. Now that you mention all of the needing more, because when we read to them, he only wants more and more and more stories.
More and more.
And I think that's cool. Like I hope that people can see the importance of reading. Now that I'm back in this world, it really is so important, like to not lose that skill and not to lose that imagination that can be so easily overtaken by. And this isn't like a shot at TV or anything like that, because I love watching movies and I love watching all that stuff. But
when you're watching something, you're being fed what the director and the producer and all the people behind it have imagined, which is a really amazing thing that they get to do. But
absolutely, being
able to imagine something yourself is very valuable.
A good balance with like anything, a good balance of TV and reading, I think is a cool thing. And no one ever told me not to read in my life. I just started to think of it as
you associated reading with like having to read boring school stuff that you hated,
which and there was some pretty boring stuff.
Of course there was,
you know, and I think that is also part of how can you help reshape the world, right? Like, and how can you make something interesting? And it's like, well, maybe if people did more fun activities around getting a book excited or getting people excited about a book, I think could bring out a new light in why people should read, I don't know. I follow like Jack Carr and a couple of these other new writers these days, and they do fun stuff. It isn't just like a guy sitting behind a keyboard with glasses that's, kind of nerdy and just
Not that
writing.
there's anything wrong with that.
I didn't say there's anything wrong with it. But that's what I used to associate reading with.
Right.
But here comes this fiction writer with a beard, and he throws, he bow hunts, and,
it used to be like special forces.
Yeah, it used to be like an ex, ranger or something like that. And that's not what your typical writer is.
Right.
And so I think that is part of how I'm looking at this future in the businesses, because a book like what you have been reading that's been around forever. I mean, that's a really cool thing that they can withstand the test of time. And fairy tales have definitely withstood the test of time because they still make movies about them, and they still tell there's still books that use fairy tales as their basis to then write a bigger tale.
Right.
Because like my tale definitely has undertones in it from other sources because like, well, that's life, like struggle, like you have everything, it can be taken, can be given back to you, or like it's not the first time that a tale has been told, but it's how you take the time to do those imaginary words, or like use words to invoke emotion in someone to where they're like, oh, this is so cool. I want more. I want to sit under my blanket and read with a flashlight.
Right.
My book probably not going to be for 9-year-olds.
Definitely not.
Highly.
Our kids are not going to be reading your book for a very long time.
Probably not.
No.
They'll probably slap one of those warning stickers on it.
It's not that explicit. It's a little explicit.
Actually,
I've read a lot worse.
Oh my gosh. I'm sure there's a million books that are worse.
Yeah, I also love serial killer books.
Yeah.
So well, this is nowhere near what those are.
And I tried to originally write it with no cuss words. Not because I was like trying to be better or anything like that. I was trying to see how I could use descriptive.
It was a good challenge.
It was a really good.
It helped you open up your vocabulary big time versus just like inserting,
dropping an F-bomb every,
And it was like, this isn't necessary. It's gratuitous and it's taking away from the story. Instead of forcing yourself to think of how else can I describe what I'm trying to say without using a swear word as a cop-out.
Yeah, and that's what like you're talking about in that fairy tale book, Clearly they didn't say rape.
Right.
Or
they did not.
But they used other terms to get to that same...
To insinuate,
And that's what I tried to do because I needed that at that time. So I didn't just gratuitously write F this, shit this, blank this, blah, blah, blah this. It was, okay, how can I go about invoking this emotion through a character onto paper now?
Right.
But then I went back after a certain amount of edit. I think we were on like 6 or something like that by that point.
And a lot of edits.
And I remember telling you, I was like, I think I have to drop some bombs in here.
When it made sense.
Exactly.
When it added to the story instead of it just being there as filler.
And listening.
That's why I don't believe in an album cut.
Yeah.
You hear about people talking about like, oh, there's 5 singles on this album. Well, you've got like 8 other songs. What are those?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand the point of having filler songs on an album.
Yeah.
Like, put a song on an album because it's excellent.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether you ever push it as a single, that's up to the powers that be. But the song needs to be excellent. It shouldn't be there just so that you have
something.
Another song that adds another 4 minutes so your album is a certain length of time.
Yeah.
Pointless. People are just going to skip over it anyways.
And I think that those formulas are what, like looking at someone like a Morgan Wallen who just put out a 30-something, song album. They're clearly not looking at any other like album going, oh, we need to fit in this box. They're just like, well, this is how many songs we want to put out. Yeah, this is what we're doing.
We believe in all of these songs.
And that's what I think an old book like that, back in the day, that was probably super provocative. Like
very much so. Yeah.
You're gonna.
I'm gonna have to go find it now that we're talking about it because it's been driving me crazy for like 2 years that I haven't seen it. And I know it's in a box somewhere downstairs.
The other side to it is that, like, for what we're doing, we're pushing the limit. So when we're putting in curse words now, it's not just to be like everyone else. It is literally invoking an emotion at that moment in time.
It's an extreme emotion.
And hearing the person read it last night, there was a couple points where they got super into it, and it was like, whoa, like that does help the story right there.
Yeah,
it didn't take away.
It helped you actually feel like you were
that emotion,
listening to that character talk for real.
It was cool.
Very cool.
All right, we're gonna wrap this up quick, but I'm gonna share one more book, and I've talked about this one as well, but this one I read at the beginning of the pandemic, and I've probably had this book forever. My dad gave it to me, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It probably came out in like the 30s. I forget when it was originally published.
It's old.
Yeah, it is old, but
it's really cool.
But one of the coolest things about this book is that it though it uses the term rich in the beginning, it's not rich in the sense of monetary wealth. It's
like it can be, but it like
can totally
rich in life, rich in character,
knowledge,
rich in knowledge.
It really helped me right before I dove into writing this book. I needed something outside of myself, which I think was very handy going back to church for us.
Yes.
Because I needed to have direction. And to have that discipline, to have that direction, it's hard for a person. And I think that's why, for so long we talked about all of that on the podcast before we really let out of the bag what we were working on.
Right.
Because in the book at one point it even talks about it. It's like, why tell everybody what you're going to do? The better idea is to show everybody.
And then talk about it. Yeah.
And then be able to talk about it. And it did. I think that's a very valid point when I think back to what we were doing. I didn't need to be talking about what I was doing. I needed to be sitting down and writing it.
Right.
And
then talk about it when you're done.
Talk about it later. Yeah. I can talk about it now for every day for the rest of my entire life if I decide.
I'm sure you will.
But all I had to do was just pause and say, I need to focus on this. And this book really walks you through all these different thought processes behind focusing and gaining knowledge and doing the moves that are going to move you not only to the next level, but hopefully move your family for generations into the next level if you do it the right way.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a bunch of success stories that he has in the beginning because it was taken and then there was add-ons from a different author.
Right.
So there's like little parts that
it's like additional examples
exactly.
like that are more recent that would make more sense to people of our generations.
Yeah. But when people ask me about a book they should read that helped me.
That's the one you always say, yeah.
I do always tell everybody, I say, go read Think and Grow Rich. And it's not for any other reason that he really just says, well, fine. If this is what you want to do, this is how you do it.
Yep.
And
follow these steps.
And it's amazing because you're like, gosh, that sounds so simple. But it is so simple. It's just the point of difficult. Doing it every day.
Yep.
And then there's obviously days where you just can't do it. Like if you're a house builder or you're a construction guy, you want to be the best concrete layer. Well, when it's raining, you clearly can't do it.
Right.
But that doesn't mean
are
that
some hurdles. But then the next day you get back.
But that doesn't mean that you can't like think about it the day that you're not doing it, or you can't think of I think tomorrow I might try this. And I think that was his point, is that it was like you just become consumed in what you want. And what I wanted was family.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be around you. I wanted to have kids with you. I wanted to like not have to tour. And by him detailing, like, well, fine, if this is what you want to sacrifice to get to this, write it down. So there's things on my like board that I read in the mornings, which I haven't been reading a lot because they're
way to take them down, showings,
but they were taped to my mirror, and I would read them as I brushed my teeth in the morning and night, and it had literally defined goals. Like, cool. This is where I want to go. This is how I have to do it. This is what I have to sacrifice. And this is the time frame.
Yep.
Because if I gave myself, there's that old adage, like if you give roadies, 14 days to load in, they're going to take 14 days to load in. But if you give them but if they have to do it in 4 hours, they'll do it in 4 hours. And I think that's with anything in life. If you're like, you know what, I'm going to write. Because, and this is the other thing. People say it a lot. I'm going to do this.
Do it.
But we all are like at fault when it comes to things like that. I'm at fault for things like that.
Me too.
But when you write it down and you stare at it every morning and there's a defined date at the back of it.
You're like, oh, I love it.
And what's crazy is I was looking at mine the other day and I literally have written on there 40 years old, right? And though the monetary thing that I wrote on there, because he also had me like write like a monetary idea. I stared at it and I'm like, that's not the value. That's the amount moved.
Right.
And the other part to it is I actually have started, because signing that deal is technically the 40.
It is when you're 40. You're still 40 right now.
So it's pretty wild because I gave myself exact defined things. And here they are landing on divine things. So I had to say Think and Grow Rich was literary. It didn't, like, I shouldn't say like, it didn't help my vocabulary.
No.
But it definitely
shaped your life.
It definitely shaped who I needed to become to get the results I wanted to ultimately live the life that I want to live.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. And
it's amazing.
So I'll always tip my hat to Think and Grow Rich. And
it's a good one.
Napoleon Hill and Anthony Bourdain, my two literary. Those will always probably be number 1 and number 2.
Love it.
And then after that, there's a freaking boatload. There's a whole bunch.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I'm going to hold up our sponsors because they deserve a little bit of love.
Here they are.
Smile. Perfect. I said it one time just to make sure we had the good shot for the.
Here they are. Yay.
All right.
Okay. Good time.
Thanks, sponsors.
Thanks, guys.
And with that, yeah, we had a little longer of a podcast than I thought.
We hope you guys have a wonderful week.
Have a wonderful, and go Arsenal.
Yeah, they beat Man City. Woo woo! Who knew?
First blood.
Yeah,
struck. Love you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.